Hello, and welcome to the Focusing Way podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm your host, David Battistella. Today on the Focusing Way podcast, we speak to Karen Liebenguth of Green Space Life Coaching. Karen is an experienced life coach, certified focusing practitioner, and accredited mindfulness teacher. She works with private and corporate individuals and groups to foster personal growth and sustainable change. She set up Green Space Coaching in 2008 to offer coaching while walking in London's parks and green space, tapping into the benefits nature has on our psychological, emotional, and physical well-being. She believes that it is in nature where reflection, insight, and change can happen most naturally. And joining me now is Karen Liebenguth. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, and thank you very much for being here with me today.
It's a pleasure.
I was reading through some of your article on the role of the listener, and I just wanted to read a small quote from that article because I really think it sort of gives people a real context of maybe some of your work. But I came across it and I found it quite interesting. You said in that article, focusing ability is the birthright of every person. We were all born with the ability to know what we feel from moment to moment. But for many people, the experience of hurt and alienation in their childhood have caused us to lose trust in our feelings and bodies. Focusing offers a way of learning to reconnect with our feelings and sensations that live in our bodies. That just so summed up so much of focusing for me, and I wanted to be able to read that and share that with people listening. But maybe we could just start by, you could let me know how you came to focusing.
Yeah, this goes some years back. A very good friend of mine, who at the time I was running some nature connection workshops with, was a trained focusing practitioner, and he in our work kept mentioning focusing. And one day he spoke to me about focusing again and how we could bring it into our work. And although I think I had an intuition of what he was talking about, I had no idea what he was talking about. And so one day I said, so today I want to know more about focusing. Tell me what it is. And he said, I can't tell you what it is with words. I have to take you through a little focusing moment. And there we were, preparing our next workshop in nature, and we were in nature outdoors, and he took me into a little focusing moment. So he encouraged me to talk a little bit about what was going on inside in that moment, and he was then reflecting back to me. And he didn't say anything else. He just did that with me. He encouraged me to say what I was experiencing in that moment inside, what I was feeling. And then he reflected back what he was hearing. And then he said, well, that's focusing. And I went, I understood a little more, but still wasn't quite sure what it was. But I knew more then.
Could you describe that very first sort of body feeling that you had in that? Was there a connection to the body in that moment you had?
There was. there was, and I think it was because my friend encouraged me to sense inside. He said to me, sense for what's there right now for you. And so it was as though I was looking sort of inwards, as though I was turning my eyes inside my body. And I was sensing, and I just sort of shared with him what was going on, what my sensation was in that moment. And yeah, I had a bodily feeling of, I can't remember exactly what it was. I imagine whenever I'm outdoors, I feel sort of quite spacious and grounded and soft inside. Something like that it must have been. And he reflected that back to me. And that, having that reflected back to me, deeply resonated, and I could understand something more. I could understand, this is what focusing is something that happens between two people, something that happens because someone invites someone to sense for what's there, and then reflecting that back so that I could check whether that was actually what I was sensing. And by doing that, I had this little aha. Yeah, that is true. So I could have a deeper experience of what I was actually experiencing in that moment. And that was just so wonderful.
Yeah, and just as you're saying that and these words, it's reminding me that you put a beautiful quote in this article by Eugene Janlin, who is the sort of founder of focusing. But I just want to share that because you've so beautifully described the humanness of focusing and the human connection. But here's what Eugene Janlin had to say at a conference of psychotherapists. And here's the quote. I want to start with the most important thing I have to say. The essence of working with another person is to be present as a living being. And that is lucky, because if we had to be smart or good or mature or wise, then we would probably be in trouble. But what matters is not that. What matters is to be human with another human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the exact experience you first had in that focusing.
Mm.
And had you started as a focuser, or was focusing something you added to what you were doing?
Yeah. Was something that I added to what I was already doing. So I first trained as a life coach in 2004, and I finished in 2007. And I only came to focusing some years later in 2010. So 3 years after I finished my coaching training, and after I had already been set up as a coach and working as a coach with clients. So coaching sort of came to me, and when I had this aha moment into what focusing is, I immediately knew that I had to learn how to focus, that I had to do the training and bring it into my coaching work. And ever since I've become a focusing practitioner, it has greatly enriched my focus and my coaching work with clients, all my work with clients. And I'm very grateful to have found focusing and the practice of focusing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about your specific implementation of focusing? Because I understand you do some sessions in nature, or could maybe just walk me through how that works or how you work with people that way?
Yeah. So when I work with my clients, I mainly work outdoors in my local, very beautiful and big park in East London, Victoria Park. So we walk next to each other quite slowly across the grass, across the land. So I don't stay on the path in the park. I always walk across the land on the grass because it slows us down immediately, being in green space and surrounded by trees and the sky and the earth. And I don't talk about focusing overtly. I just do it. So when my clients talk about what's going on for them, I would use focusing language, which is reflecting back what I hear the client says and using the client's language. So when they tell me what's going on for them, I then reflect back the key things they said.
Mm-hmm.
And I reflect them back in their words, which is very important. So I don't interpret, I don't comment, I don't change what they say. I reflect back the key words, the key sentences, so that they can check back. Or no, actually, no, I mean this, or no, actually, it's that. So when they hear me reflect back what they say, they can go a little deeper into what they are experiencing, what's going on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And then they continue, talk and explore what's going on for them. And then I would reflect back again. Or I would encourage them to pause for a moment and to sense again for what's going on. Or I would suggest, I would make a suggestion in the focusing way, which would be something like, if it feels right, you might like to acknowledge what's just come forward or what's there for you right now,
Mm-hmm.
and sense freshly for what that feels like in your body. So something like that. And then we would continue walking quite slowly. Sometimes clients need to stop and sense into their body, or look up into the sky, or look around them, or look down onto the earth. So it's a lovely process outdoors using nature.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how much of a contrast you notice from conducting or doing these kinds of encounters outdoors like that and compared to indoors. And also, are there any of those sort of magical moments where nature comes right into the middle of process and we sort of become one with all of it? Have you experienced that in this kind of practice?
Yeah, very much, which is very deeply satisfying for me when I see it happening or when I sense it happening in myself, but also when I sense and see how much being in nature benefits my clients. And there are those magic moments where I can sense that my clients and we together, or sometimes it happens more for them or more for me, sometimes it happens at the same time, where there's a sense of sort of being in the right place, being in the right place there and then in nature, and sort of merging with the natural environment, being at peace with with the place in nature, with the trees and the sky above and the earth, and just sort of looking around with the green space sort of all around. So those are magic moments, and I think the natural setting is so very conducive and helpful to slow down. And focusing really is about slowing down. Because when we don't slow down, we can't really sense inside for what's there, for how our life is going right now, for all the different somethings, the different parts in us that are there and may want to come forward, may want to come into relationship with us. And being in nature allows us to sort of naturally slow down. And that, of course, is so very supportive of the focusing process. Where when we want to make a little space for our experience, we need to slow down. And that is just happening naturally outdoors.
We welcome you to join us for part 2 of our conversation with Karen Liebenguth on the next episode of the Focusing Way podcast. You've been listening to the Focusing Way podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm your host, David Battistella.